Yeah, alright, let's get into it. I'd like to think that almost everybody out there has that one unforgettable experience from the cinema. But generally thinking about it now, there's possibly an entire generation that does not have that experience or memory, and potentially there will be an entire generation that never experiences the cinema the way we did. The convenience of streaming is only a few years away from killing the cinema experience entirely. Over the past decade, it has become less and less compelling to actually go out to the cinema when you can just wait one extra week and stream it in the comfort of your own living room.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
So in my attempt to pay homage to the boy in question who's about to be taken out back to see the sunset one last time, I figured we could talk about the life and inevitable death of the cinema. You want to come in? Hi. Don't play with the wire. It was pretty rough going in the very beginning of cinema. I mean, the first moving images was just a selection of frames that was created for the only reason we make leaps and bounds in technology as a species. It was a bet. Edward Muybridge in 1878 was hired by a railroad tycoon, no, not that one, to settle a debate as to whether a horse fully extends its legs while galloping or if it momentarily suspends all four hooves. Muybridge set up 12 cameras to go off via medieval claymores, aka tripwires, and had a horse gallop through them to set them off in sequence. But the interesting thing is that the motion picture element of it was actually a completely accidental byproduct. He only noticed after doing it that when he flipped through the images that he had created, a la the Captain Underpants method, it gave the illusion of motion. After that, Muybridge created the Zoopraxiscope, this funky looking thing, and with that, set in motion what you are now watching today. Moving pictures. Now, it didn't really get close to the final product that we see today until 1895, when the Lumiere brothers created the cinematograph. This thing. This yokamajig. This was basically the first motion camera that used film. Thomas Edison also had his own camera, but it wasn't used publicly, and it wasn't used for the same reasons that the Lumiere brothers used their cinematograph. The Lumiere brothers were looking more into the artistic side of filming things, or at least the more observational side. Because the first film that the Lumiere brothers shot was a day in the life of the factory workers, and people ate this shit up. Seeing even the most mundane tasks recorded and played back in front of them was incredibly entertaining for the time, but it was also seen as a bit of a novelty, something that you would see in a circus, rather than something that would be screened in a huge event. And it certainly wasn't seen as an actual art form yet. I tell you what though, that all changed with this fella, and I will come to your house and pay you money if you don't know who that is. Because that is probably the most infamous picture that you could have ever seen if you ever went to f***ing art school like I did. Actually, they didn't show me it in art school. I found it myself, so they were... I mean, that was a waste of time anyway. This is A Trip to the Moon, a short film by George it's not even George. Created by
Georges Méliès.
His name's George. Created by George. George felt that this medium was only limited by the creator's imagination. He wanted to make short films that actually told stories. So with the help of many effects, camera trickery, and extensive set builds, he was able to create a short film that went on to explode and show the world that this medium could be used to tell incredibly engaging and creative stories that, again, were only limited by people's imaginations, rather than the reality that we lived in. He showed people that filming had a far greater capacity for storytelling than it was initially conceived. A kind of sad but funny thing that I learned while researching about
Georges
is that his film was so popular that it was actually pirated over the world because people wanted to see it that badly. And it actually ended up forcing him to quit the industry because he couldn't afford to sell his film because everyone already had it. So, since literally the dawn of this media, people have been pirating films, which is just Oh, God, you wouldn't steal a car, would you? We'll power through the 1900s because, I mean, nothing really eventful happened during that period of time anyway. So, early 1900s, camera techniques evolved and we got the creation of the close-up. Short films started being shown in fairs and eventually Nickelodeons. These were basically the first cheap theaters specifically for movies. 1910s to 1920s, Hollywood rises to be the pinnacle of film production in the West. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keating, Mary Pickford become cinema icons and become larger than the films they are in themselves. There wasn't really anything else that happened during this period of time. Oh wait, yeah. Sound. Sound was introduced in the 1920s and allowed for synchronized voice acting. These were called talkies, and they almost instantaneously became the standard for movies. 1930s to 1940s, aka Hollywood's golden era. This was the birth of genre films, westerns, gangsters, horrors, etc. Hollywood held and controlled all of the power when it came to production, including their stars. Late 30s also saw the shift to color with the sequel to Wicked. 1950s, now we're reaching the tipping point. Okay, 50 years of cinema and it had no real competition. But now we have the creation of the television. A far more convenient way to experience what you would have watched in the cinema. It's like history's repeating itself. But this was actually a good thing for the time of cinema, because with television not becoming a powerhouse and just a potential threat, Hollywood decided to double down and make the cinema experience as big as they could. Hollywood used its opportunity to flex its muscles with bigger and bolder films, revamping the entire theater experience with bigger and better screens, more speakers, surround sound. They wanted it to be the ultimate experience because that's what it was. That was its selling point. This is how you're supposed to watch movies. That worked for a while, but then we get to the 60s and 70s, and Hollywood started running out of steam. Stories became more personal and focused on social change and youth culture, and got a little bit political. Wonder why. And then we came to the 80s and 90s, the blockbuster era. This, for me, was seen as kind of the last big push for cinema. After that, well, this came along. Netflix, founded by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, was originally more like a library rental system. You would go online, or go on the web. You would look at the selection of movies that they had, you would order them, and then they would be delivered in your mail. You could watch them at your leisure, and then you could send them back. It was a pay-by-movie basis, but only 2 years later, in 1999, it switched to a subscription service, something we're all pretty familiar with nowadays. And in 2007, only 8 years later, Netflix created the first streaming service. And let me tell you, this thing grew like fucking wildfire. In 2008, the same year, Hulu created next-day TV episodes online on their own website. 2011, Amazon launches Prime. But this was all still used for distribution, taking shows that were created by Hollywood, by big productions, and then they were bringing them to the streaming service until Netflix, the leading streaming giant, released its own TV show on its streaming platform, and it was the only place you could watch it. Can you guess what the show was? Yeah, it was House of Cards. Boy, if you thought the floodgates were open now, this dam pretty much burst. Streaming services realized that the name of the game was exclusive content by and for their streaming services. You could only see this thing on Netflix, or Hulu, or Prime. And if you wanted to watch all three of them, you gotta pay for all three of them. Do the streaming services care? Fuck no, they don't. Are you kidding me? All they want is your attention and your money. They don't care if you have to watch another show on a different service. Too bad. You want our show? You gotta pay us for it. Do you notice how we've strayed just a little far away from the original idea of this service? That it was created so that people had a more convenient way to watch films or TV shows that they otherwise couldn't, and that this was supposed to be a convenient alternative to that, to now global corporate and tech companies trying to fight for exclusivity between the shows that you might want to see, but putting up as many blockades as possible for you to get to that damn thing because they want your money. They don't care about the show, they don't care about the film, they don't care about the medium. They care about what's in that little wallet of yours.
Yeah, things are getting a little warped here.
Rapid fire round, let's go. CBS All Access, later known as Paramount Plus, is created in 2014. HBO, now founded shortly after in 2015. 2019, Apple TV launches, and at the same time, Disney Plus removes all of their Disney content from Netflix, gatekeeping it behind Disney Plus. And 2020 saw Peacock and HBO Max join the fight. All the way up to today, where streaming servers have gotten simultaneously more expensive, more shit, and are eating each other in an attempt to get a Yahtzee over the entire market. I know that's not how Yahtzee works. And in all of this, we haven't asked ourselves, where does cinema fit into this? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't. And that's the painful truth of it. The tech giants have such a chokehold on this medium that cinema has unfortunately been requested to die a slow death, which it is sadly doing right now. They really, unfortunately, have no other value to give you other than the pure spectacle of going to go see them. And unfortunately, there's two problems with that. One, with streaming services focusing on pumping out content because they want to keep you on the site, they are simultaneously bleeding dry actual independent production companies. So there is actually very little being made that entices people to go see it in cinema. The majority of things are being made by the streaming services. And where do they want you to watch it? They want you to watch it at home. When was the last time you think of that you went to go see a movie in the cinema? You can probably think of one or two, but back in the day, I mean, the thing to do was go to the cinema. People went every weekend. Two, with the advancements that have been made in home entertainment, TVs have gotten 1,000 times better in the past 25 years. And unless you are looking for a true spectacle experience, which, let's be honest, can still be hit or miss, the average consumer is pretty content with what they have set up in their own living room and doesn't really warrant a reason to leave it. Times have changed, man. And the silver screen that used to shine across nations has now gone dull. The media landscape has become a content farm. Movies used to be true event spectacles. The hype, the buzz, the energy, waiting in line to get your ticket so that you could go in and experience, hopefully, something truly incredible. I think for me, I will always be chasing that high of when movies spoke to me as a kid. I mean, I'm not ignorant to the fact that everything was more impactful for me when I was a child. Of course it was. Nostalgia holds a very strong grip on a lot of people. But movies were what led me to the career I am in now. Movies told me that this was something that I wanted to do, because if how it made me feel was something that I, in my life, could give to someone else, then that was worth dedicating my time to it. And now I work in the film industry, so I will always have a very strong passion of what's happening to this medium. The path of least resistance is the road most traveled. And unfortunately, streaming services have done nothing but throw convenience into the lap of everyday consumers. TV shows have gotten so big that they're only a few minutes away from being full movies themselves. And with the sheer amount of money being pumped into the system via the tech giants that own these monopolies, movies as a medium have lost their identity. They're not events or spectacles or works of art. They're next day delivery impulse buys. They're the background noise that you put on while you clean your house or get a moment to distract your kids. They're not the big screen. They're the second screen. It's not all doom and gloom, not entirely. There will always be independents and indie filmmakers who push for this medium, who push to show that this art has meaning and value. It's just, unfortunately, for most of us, not going to be packaged in the way it used to be. And we have to accept that. And I think, like streaming for most people has come full circle where it's basically just cable again, I do think that cinemas will have a resurgence, or maybe a renaissance would be a better word. Coming back under a rebranded title, crowd streaming. You wait and see. I bet it'll happen. But what do you guys think? Do you think cinema is dying? Do you think it's already dead? Or do you think it's going to come back swinging and it'll be the next best thing since sliced bread? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know in the comments what memorable experiences you have from going to the cinema. I remember when I was 8 years old, I was sick and my mom pulled me out of school, but I wasn't sick enough to be bedridden. So I convinced her to take me to Star Wars Episode 3 because it was out in theaters. So she took me to go see that, and about 30 minutes in, I threw up on the guy sitting beside us. But I refused to leave. Another experience I also had was when I went to see Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I have a bad thing with third entries in films. When Professor Lupin started turning into a furry, I dipped. I was not there for that. That scared the crap out of me. So I ran out of the theater. And as soon as I had composed myself and decided I would go back in, I accidentally walked into the wrong theater. And I walked into Van Helsing. And that was different. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'd appreciate if you could like and subscribe. But I'll see you in the next one. Take care.